To the Patriots Pulse post-game show presented by Sonic Boom. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and tonight I'm joined by my partner, John Sapochetti. Patriots wrap up the preseason with a 37-13 loss to the Cleveland Browns in the 2026 preseason finale. And the only word that I can think of, John, when I think of tonight's game is stinker. It was a stinker. It was a shitty performance by the Patriots. Total no-show job in a game that, look, it doesn't matter. The starters didn't play for either team, but it was I was just floored by how poorly this team played tonight, especially with the amount of veterans you had on the field. Guys that are fighting for their careers here. And this team, especially on defense, completely no-shows and a pitiful performance. I mean, they made Dylan Gabriel look like a Pro Bowl quarterback tonight. They made him look like uh, somebody like Andy Dalton or Kirk Cousins in their prime. I mean, it was just a pitiful performance, and in a lot of ways, a bad way to end the preseason.
Yeah, I'm sure on Sports Talk Radio tomorrow in Cleveland, it's going to be maybe Dylan Gabriel should be our starting quarterback instead of Deshaun Watson. That's going to be a narrative because that quarterback room is upside down for sure. But yeah, the Patriots didn't show up. Like, what's the point of even having these things if you're not going to show up? And as you said, you've got veteran players, young players fighting for the back half of that roster, and they don't show up. Now, again, the starters didn't play, so you're not going to gain anything out of that. But the guys that are fighting for their careers, and this is the one sport that you really have to fight for it. Basketball, you go to the G League, you have guaranteed contracts, so on and so forth. Same thing with baseball, same thing with hockey. Football, you've got to be on the big show to make the money. And it looked like half the team didn't even want to be there, if not the entire team, which is very disheartening. And it goes back to my point, too, about these exhibition games. And that's what I call them, exhibition games, because preseason would be saying too many nice things about them. Fans are paying full value for this. That's garbage. I mean, whether you're in Cleveland or if the game was in New England tonight, you're paying full value, $150, $180 a ticket to see that. I mean, come on.
And there's a reason
terrible.
why, despite the fact that the game was on Prime,
Mhm.
there's a reason why there were probably 20,000 people there tonight.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but the jig is up with these preseason games. And I've said this to Kevin Stone, I've said it to John Lyons, I'm going to say it to you. I know that the league is waiting to get to that 18th regular season game before they make a decision on the preseason and what they want to do with it. But as far as I'm concerned, John, get rid of this third game now. You're going to get the 18th regular season. We know that game. We know that's coming. It may not come until after the new CBA, after 2029. But the bottom line is, this is a waste of time. Now, it's going to fall on deaf ears because these owners aren't going to give up the gate of a third preseason game, especially if it falls on a year where they have the two preseason home games. But tonight is proof that the third preseason game is just a waste of time. You saw it tonight. But getting back to the game, I think for me, the concerning thing is, and you've seen it in all three preseason games with this football team, they've been really lackluster, John. I haven't walked away from any of these preseason games feeling that this team, and Vrabel talked about this on Saturday night when he said, hey, you know what? We don't have any depth. They really don't. You saw it tonight, especially on defense. You have no depth on the edge. If Draymond Jones doesn't overproduce, if Elijah Ponder doesn't take another step, if Gabe Bacchus doesn't develop, they're in trouble in terms of their edge rushers. Yes, you have Barmore and Williams inside, but they're only going to be able to do so much. You have no depth at linebacker. And I think when you look at this secondary tonight, I mean, they got torched by Dylan Gabriel. That's the more concerning thing. And I don't want to get into Gonzalez and the contract. That has nothing to do with tonight's performance. But what concerned me tonight is that once you get past your top three corners, you really don't have any depth. Kindle Vildor is probably your next guy, and maybe the rookie Karan Prunty after that. But at best, you have five corners on this team that can play. Outside of that, and I don't want to hear about Woods and some of these other guys, no disrespect to them, but I didn't see anything from them tonight that warrants me thinking that these guys should make this football team and help and that they're going to help this football team.
And you look at injury concern, right? Carlton Davis missed games last year. He was banged up. Christian Gonzalez in his first 3 years has missed games. I mean, missed most of his second season. So when you look at, or most of his first season. So when you look at the secondary, they're not the most durable guys either. And you need depth at that position because you're going to have injuries. You're going to go against a lot of teams that are loaded at the wide receiver position. You need to run guys in there in certain situations. Marcus Jones is a really good nickel corner, slot corner. But again, he's undersized, so he's somewhat limited. So, yeah, that's going to be a concern. And we thought going into this that this secondary is one of the best in football. I think when it's intact and healthy, it can be, for sure, because I think you've upgraded at safety. But there are concerns about the lack of depth at corner. Look, every team has depth. They have quality depth. And it's a difficult thing in this league now because of the salary constraints, because teams, I think, quite frankly, do a better job of building their rosters than they did years ago. I'm not saying they do a great job now, but it's better than was, say, 20 years ago. That it's tough to get depth, quality depth on an NFL roster. And right now, the Patriots don't have that.
No, they don't. Dylan Gabriel tonight, 12 of 15, 183 yards. I'm sorry, 186 yards, 3 touchdown passes. 12 of 15, 186, 3 touchdown passes. This is a guy that has hardly gotten any snaps this summer. He is not in their plans. He may, after tonight, he may end up making the team as the 3rd quarterback, but the dude is not in their plans. They did him a favor tonight by starting him. And again, as I said to start the show, they made this guy look like a Pro Bowl quarterback. And he's 5'11" with a limited skill set. And I know Herb Street kept talking about him starting the most games in college football history and all this other gibberish. But at the end of the day, that's in college football. That's playing in a spread offense. He got away with that limited skill set playing in college and some really good programs, Oklahoma, Oregon, Central Florida, among others. But to me, you're talking about a quarterback here. You went up against a guy tonight, okay, that's been passing out gum and holding the clipboard all summer, and he torched you. And that's where, if I'm a Patriots fan, you genuinely have to be concerned about what Vrabel said last week. The depth comment to me is concerning. And look, I said this earlier in the week. Nobody has depth in this league beyond 3 or 4 quality pieces on either side of the ball outside of their starters. I mean, every team in the league probably has 30 guys on their roster that are starter caliber type players. And then after that, it drops off. But for me, when Vrabel says that, he's not just saying it to say it. I think it is 100% true, and it's especially true on defense. And even, look, we can sit here and talk about being inspired. You're not going to be inspired to play in a meaningless preseason game, but your inspiration in a game like tonight for a lot of the guys that played is born from the fact that you need to make this football team. Or if you're not going to make this football team, you need to put something good on film. The only thing they put on film tonight is shit. That's what they put on film tonight. And I don't get worked up about these preseason games because they've become worthless. But if I'm Mike Vrabel, if I'm Zach Kerr, if I'm this defensive coaching staff, I mean, I'm sticking my finger in my mouth and looking for the nearest barrel because that was an embarrassing performance tonight. Because again, be a pro, be a professional, and to no-show the way they did and go through the motions. I mean, you wonder, and I'm going to sound dramatic here when I say this, but you wonder if some of these guys should even be in the league if they're that uninspired.
Right, because if they're going to get cut by this team, maybe they catch on with another team. And you can always tell the depth of a roster.
But I don't know if they can after that dog shit.
That's the thing. Exactly. So for many years, remember the end of Belichick, Gerard Mayo, when Patriots cut players, none of them went anywhere else because their talent level wasn't good enough. They weren't deep. Sometimes you see rosters now, they'll cut 3 or 4 guys that get picked up. The Eagles every year will have 4 or 5 guys that they cut will get picked up because they generally have a very deep roster. And like I said, everyone has depth, but do you have quality depth? That's the big question mark going forward. I mean, God, tonight they made Dylan Gabriel look like Steve Young. I mean, he was precise.
And they made him look like Roman Gabriel.
It's a blast from the past. Former offensive coordinator of the Boston Breakers of the USFL in 1983. Yeah, I remember that team very well. So, yeah, it was very disheartening because what are you trying to accomplish here? My thing, too, is not by playing the starters. And we didn't see Drake May throughout the exhibition season. What about the game management coming up in Seattle? You're less than 2 weeks away from the season opener. It is going to be loud at that place. They're hanging a banner that they're the Super Bowl champions. Now that you haven't had the game operation in place at a game, an actual game, getting plays in from Josh McDaniels to Drake May, doing all of that stuff, I can guarantee you in 2 weeks they're going to have multiple pre-snap penalties. They'll have a false start.
John, we have talked about this throughout the preseason.
Last year too.
Yeah, we've talked about this throughout the preseason, the importance of playing your starters at some point in one of these 3 games. Again, it could be 2 series, it could be a quarter, but get them some game reps, get them some game experience. It amazes me how much people are hanging their hats on these joint practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I got news for you. A joint practice is a regular practice with another team. The only difference is you're not practicing against each other. Okay. And I know people love them. And I know people are talking about they should be televised and they should charge a gate and all this other stuff. But for me, that's fine. Have your joint practices. They have value. I'm not trying to diminish them. And I'm not trying to say that they don't have value. But I don't know how you get through. And this isn't just the Patriots. This is league wide. Starters aren't playing in these games anymore. How do you go through 3 weeks of preseason football games and not give your starters some work? And then we wonder why the first 3 or 4 weeks of the regular season looks like an extension of the preseason, because it is. These guys aren't playing in games in the preseason. Their first action is the first couple of weeks of the season, and it shows because they're trying to knock the rust off.
You haven't even warmed up. Yeah, I want to see in a game, you're lined up on the sideline. The other team's on the opposite sideline. Your coaching staff is on the sideline. Josh McDaniels is calling plays, getting him into Drake May. He's deciphering the play. Then he's getting up to the line of scrimmage if you have to make any changes. And now you can get into a rhythm offensively. You can't do that in practice against your own team. And you can't do that in joint practices either. It has to happen in a game, even as an exhibition game. That is the dress rehearsal. We used to always call the third exhibition game the dress rehearsal. Like, this is what we're going to look like in 2 weeks when we kick off the season. Now there's only 3 exhibition games. Thank God. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You should go back to 2, and it will once they go to the 18 game schedule. But you've got to have some point in it, even if it's 2 or 3 series, to just get your feet wet and get the mechanism, the operation in gear as you get ready for week 1. Seattle's going to be a nut house in 2 weeks, right? I mean, they're raising the flag for the second time in their history. We know what they think of the Patriots. They think they should have beaten them back in Super Bowl 49. They're going to be loud and proud on that Wednesday night, getting plays in from the sideline to Drake May, however it's done with the headset, whatever. It's not going to be that easy. It's going to be loud, and you're going to see false starts. You're going to see a holding call because a lineman didn't jump at the right time on a snap. I mean, you're going to see a lot of those things, which we saw last year. We were some of the few people, John, Lion, Stone, and the 2 of us, who talked about, as good as the Patriots played going 14-3, they weren't always buttoned up. They kind of got through it somehow.
No, beginning of the season, they had a lot of problems with penalties.
Yep. Horrible. And again, tougher schedule this year. You're not going to be able to live through that if you want to win the division over the Buffalo Bills, make the playoffs, make a run again. So those are all concerns going forward. It just looks like a team that's just not ready for prime time.
Yeah, no. And Patriot fans, if you're up and you're online and you're scrolling on X or Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, feel free to jump on and join the conversation here. We would love to hear from you. Again, Patriots wrap up the preseason with a 37-13 loss to the Cleveland Browns. This will probably be the high watermark of the season for the Cleveland Browns, a season in which they'll probably win their standard 2 or 3 games, and Todd Monken will probably get fired and reunite with John Harbaugh next year, and they'll move on to their next coach. So this is probably as good as it's going to get for the Brownies, thumping the Patriots in a meaningless preseason game. And I think the other thing that's important to point out here, and I say this all the time, is that it's not just, you talk about the crowd noise and everything else. It's also about the communication. It's also about being on the same page. And tonight, Ashton Grant, quarterback's coach, called the plays. Josh McDaniels was in the booth. That's great for Grant. He gets some real experience that he needs. He gets those coordinator reps. It can help him down the road to potentially land an opportunity as an offensive coordinator. But again, not to belabor the point, but not playing your starters at some point this preseason, what it does is now it puts them in a position where they're going to need to be able to get off the bus and execute on September 9th against Seattle. And they're going to need to do it in a game environment, and you haven't put them in that. And again, I don't want to overstate it either, because we're talking about the preseason. I mean, the preseason football environment blows. It sucks. People aren't into it. It's people that are casuals for the most part that are there. It's people that don't go to the regular season game. So it's not that that's a great environment. It's not like tonight in Cleveland there was going to be 70,000 people there and they're going to be screaming at the top of their lungs, and Drake's going to have to cover the ear holes so that he can get the call. And they're going to have to go to a silent count. It's none of that. But again, just the operation. Football, what's important, especially on offense, is operation is everything. You've got to get the operation down. It's not the free-flowing sport that basketball is, or hockey, or even baseball to a degree, or lacrosse. In football, operation matters. Getting the right personnel grouping in, getting the play call in on time, communicating it effectively, having the quarterback communicate it to the team, giving the quarterback the option to get in and out of plays. These are all things that, again, as I said earlier, in recent years in the NFL, teams are working through those kinks and winks 1 through 3. That's not good, because, as you know, the one thing about this league is you're not playing 162 games here. Every game counts. You can't have a bad week in the NFL because it could come back to bite you in the ass at the end of the season. So, look, the preseason is over. It's in the rearview mirror, thankfully. Camp is done. The preseason's done. We can move on to the regular season now. But I do think, and you mentioned this, and I think it's a valid point, you have to question, is this team ready? You got 13 days between now and that Seattle opener. Is this football team ready for the 2026 regular season?
I mean, there's different ways to prepare for the season. It appears John Harbaugh, when he was with Baltimore and he's doing it again with the Giants, likes to play his starters, likes to get them up to speed early. We saw the Ravens, I believe, win 22 straight exhibition games with Harbaugh as their head coach. So they'd be up and running for the start of the season.
Which might be the stupidest streak in NFL history, because
of course,
it's a streak that a lot of people didn't know about.
Right. We just kind of refreshed everybody's memory. And oh, by the way, the 2008 Detroit Lions went 4-0 in the preseason, 0-16 in the regular season. I'll take it closer to home. 1981 Patriots were a good, talented veteran team. They were coming off a 10-6 season the year before. They went 4-0 in the preseason, finished 2-14. So it doesn't correlate all the time. Sean McVay, one of the best coaches in the league, he doesn't play starters at all. We see what it's done for him. At times, the Rams have gotten off to slow starts, and it maybe cost them home field advantage going forward in the playoffs. They tend to be playing their best ball late in the season, but at times they've come up a little bit short because they're playing the NFC Championship game in Seattle instead of at SoFi. Here's a scenario I'll throw out to you, and again, I'm being hyperbolic here, but let's say you start the season, which you will start the season in Seattle. Seattle takes the opening kickoff, gets a couple of first downs, and then pins you inside the 10. Your first offensive play with your first team starters is going to be inside your own 10 in that zoo. Like, that's the first snap in a game condition of the year, is inside your own 10.
Yeah, I know, but
I'm going over the top here.
Let's not overstate that. That's why you practice silent counts. That's why you practice noise.
Right.
They'll be ready for that. Let's not overstate that. You make it sound like they're going to be dropped in the middle of Beirut in 1983, and they're going to have to somehow figure out how to play football amongst them getting bombed. They'll be okay. I'm more worried about the execution piece than I am the stupid Seattle Seahawks fans.
Okay, I can buy that. I know what you're saying. Again, I go to the nth degree. You know that. That's what I like to do to make it sound the worst possible scenario.
You make Stone seem sane with the hyperbole.
Yes. That's why Stone and I have to do a show. I'd be totally insane. What I also think, too, is just the operation. You tell me. Compare practice against your own team, then the next level is joint practice, and then the next level is exhibition game, right? Like, so are they basically distanced apart equally? In other words, if practice within your own team is like C, is the joint practice a B, and then the game conditions in an exhibition game A to get you ready for this stuff?
No, I mean, because remember, during the regular season, you're not doing joint practices. Right. You're just practicing. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you're preparing and that you're out there practicing and doing your thing. Again, the joint practice is great in terms of getting you ready for the season. It breaks up the monotony of training camp. You're hitting someone else. You're competing against someone else. That's where the joint practices are important. And you're scripting them in conjunction with the other team so that you can both work on the things you want to work on based on where you're at in your install at that point of camp. But as far as stacking them and saying what's more important than the other and what can get you prepared more than what, they all matter the same. It's just that by the time you get into the regular season, that stuff is in the back burner now. That stuff is designed to prepare you for the regular season. Now it's about your practice routine. It's about the health of your football team. It's about your depth. It's about those things. So again, look, they've already done a ton of work on Seattle, and now the real work begins where now they're going to begin to finalize the plan and they're going to start practicing it. So I don't think one is more important than the other. It's a part of the process to get you to the regular season, and that's when you get into your normal routine and you prepare the way you would.
And you would think you'd trust this coaching staff. It's a veteran coaching staff. Mike Vrabel was NFL Coach of the Year last year. He's one of the best coaches in the sport. That's right. Absolutely. I love the way they call him that. But you've got a veteran offensive coordinator. You've got a veteran offensive line coach. Your defensive staff is pretty much intact. I mean, this is a veteran coaching staff that accomplished a lot last year. So it's not a new staff like we see in the NFL. I think there's 10 new staffs in the NFL. They're coming a little bit from behind compared to these other teams, Cleveland being one of them. And again, this is a throwaway game. It's Cleveland. You're not going to face them in the regular season. They're inconsequential for the most part. But when you go up against teams that are prime, like Seattle will be in 2 weeks, you have to be up to speed a little bit more so than you showed tonight, to say the least. And even the first two exhibition games, I don't think they looked that great.
One of the lone bright spots was the Tommy DeVito 45-yard touchdown pass to Kyle Williams. Of course, Patriots trading Kayshon Boutte earlier this week to the Houston Texans. And look, a big reason they did that is because when you look at the way they used Kayshon Boutte, particularly in the red zone and the high red zone area, they love to throw those fade balls to him, or those double move fade balls to him. That's going to be, as I go through puberty, that's going to be Kyle Williams now. Kyle Williams is going to be the guy that's going to be on the other end of those passes now. And I think, look, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because the reaction to Kayshon Boutte being traded, John, cracked me up because, again, you would have thought they traded Randy Moss in his prime. I mean, come on, folks. I know he had the 6 touchdown catches, but look at the other numbers. Look at the catches. Look at the yards. It didn't add up. He was a stat compiler, in essence, to quote the great Mike Francesa. He was a stat compiler. I mean, yes, the touchdown numbers, you like to see that from a third or fourth receiver, however you want to categorize him. But the rest of his numbers were very pedestrian. So the fact that the reaction around here, particularly from the media, cracked me up because I'm like, all right, calm down. They traded Kayshon Boutte, okay? A 6th-round draft pick, a guy they weren't going to re-sign after this season. Let's not get carried away with his importance. Obviously, they are comfortable enough with what they have there beyond Brown and Dobbs that they think that the combination of Hollins, Williams, Pop Douglas, Chisholm, those guys are going to do enough to help them fill the rest of that receiver room. And they obviously believe that those guys can be productive. What you saw tonight, and again, with Kyle Williams, he could potentially have a big role on this team offensively, especially in plus territory. I mean, his release is as good as any receiver in the league, in my opinion. That was his strength coming out of the draft, was his ability to get off the line of scrimmage. You saw that tonight, and great ball by DeVito too, by the way. But I think that if Kyle Williams can carry the momentum, he's had a pretty good summer. If he can carry that momentum into the season, he's going to replace Boutte. They're going to be fine there. So we rest assured the Patriots will be okay without Kayshon Boutte.
I think when you look at the Patriots roster a week ago, their deepest group were wide receivers, right? Because you were able to trade Kayshon Boutte. You got Jalen Reed and a 7th-round pick for Boutte. I think with Boutte, it was a situation where he was really good the first half of last year. He had 23 catches for 431 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first 8 games. Then he has the hamstring issue, the concussion issue. He really didn't play that much. He wasn't at 100% the second half of the year. His numbers went down. He did have the 1 touchdown catch against Houston in the playoffs, but he did seem to have some chemistry going with Drake May. And at times he looked like a viable
I think a lot of people are making a lot out of that chemistry, and rightfully so. They should be.
And
It was important, but he can develop that chemistry with these guys too.
oh, sure. I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback. He's got the ability to do that. He's got a better receivers room than he had last year. I mean, A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs are better than what they had last year. I mean, you can sit here and debate, is Romeo Doubs better than Steph Diggs? I mean, whatever. A.J. Brown's better. A.J. Brown is a better receiver in his prime, bigger, more physical than Steph Diggs, without question. But their wide receiver room, I think, is better this year. And Kyle Williams will be a big part of that. The other thing, too, with Booty, the first 10 days of training camp, he looked like the best player on the roster. And then he just went downhill from there. I don't know what happened. Was it an injury?
Well, I also think they
confidence?
started to minimize his snaps. But look, he made this trade request in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they knew as camp went along and they saw Pop had a good camp. Hollins is Mac Hollins. You know, he's going to show up to work every day and produce. Afton Chisholm had a great camp. Kyle Williams had a lot of bright spots. I think when they saw that, there was a sense of urgency to move him because he made the request and because they needed to clear out a guy from that room anyway. But I think the other thing, and I said this the other night on the New England Football Show, that I think gets lost in all this is the fact that I think they wanted to do right by him. And they wanted to send him to a situation where he could play and have a chance to produce. And I know Patriot fans might say, well, who gives a shit about him and his career? It should be about maximizing his value and getting back a return that helps the Patriots. I agree. But the Patriots felt that it was important to do right by him. And ultimately, I think that's, and make no mistake about it, John, that was the best return they were going to get. I mean, I know a lot of people around here are acting like they traded Moss in his prime, but the teams weren't knocking their door down. That offer that they got for him, probably as good as they were going to get.
And you had to wait for a team to lose a wide receiver. They lose Higgins in Houston. Yeah. They need a wide receiver. They constantly lose wide receivers. So it's a good place for him to go. CJ Stroud was a disaster last year. Maybe he'll be better this year. That's a contending team because of their defense. And look, I think it goes a long way when you treat players like this throughout the league because you become a place where people want to come. Obviously, you have to pay them. Yeah. You have to pay them. That's still the bottom line. But if they go, you know what, that's a good place. And when I'm ready to move on and I request a trade, they'll take care of me. They'll be fair, more fair than we would even imagine. So he's going to a good place to say the least. And again, it's a deep position. You trade one of your wide receivers for a safety. He can be a depth piece for you, and you go on from there. There was a big outcry for trading Kayshon Boutte, and I love the player, but I fully realize that you weren't going to pay him after this year. And I give him a lot of credit for being a good soldier. I mean, he went out there and balled it early in training camp, showed his worth. And again, that's a reason he was able to get traded. The guys tonight that didn't do that, good luck to them. If they get cut, who's going to pick them up?
Right. Well, we're going to find out on Sunday.
Right.
Sunday's a big day. Of course, Patriots have to cut their roster down to 53 on Sunday. My question to you is this. Could we see a potential surprise here? I mean, I've said it all offseason. I said it going into the summer. They had a lot of bodies at wide receiver. They were going to make a move, and they were going to move one of those guys, whether it be trade him or cut him. Bootie's gone. That's done. Could we see a surprise here? Could we see somebody who right now, we're not talking about them being a potential cut candidate on Sunday, but could somebody get cut that we don't expect?
I don't expect that, again, because they're not that deep of a team. And again, we all agree all teams are not that deep, but quality depth is not necessarily their strength. You know, you would think that for salary concerns, you may want to cut a veteran making big money, but you can't touch the offensive line because the 5 starters you have now, you feel pretty good about, and the depth there is okay. It's not great. So who are you going to cut to replace one of those
taking a hit
backups?
The last 2 weeks.
Right. So you're not going to do anything there. Your defense, like you said, John, at edge and at linebacker is pretty shallow. And now with secondary looking a little shaky and not knowing about what's going to go on with Christian Gonzalez in this contract, may not want to move on from there. I don't think you're going to be seeing a big surprise. Maybe they add a piece after someone else gets cut, but in terms of the order of picking up players, they're second to last to Seattle. So 30 teams will have an opportunity to pick up a player before they do.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the composition of the roster, though. Like, for example, do you carry all 6 of the receivers we mentioned? Chances are they are. What do you do at tight end? Are they going to carry a third tight end? Right now, it's Hunter Henry, Eli Raridan? Are you going to carry a third tight end? Does a guy like a Jack Westover make this football team? A guy like Tanner Arkin, the undrafted free agent out of Illinois, he started off camp strong, faded, non-factor. They'll probably cut him and try to get him on the practice squad. So tight end is a position to keep an eye on, because are they going to carry 3 or are they going to carry 2 and use that spot somewhere else? I mean, again, you've got your 6 receivers now. Obviously, it's going to be Brown, it's going to be Dobbs, it's going to be Pop, it's going to be Matt Collins, Kyle Williams, Chisholm. Those are going to be your 6. So I think they carry 6 receivers. I think that they want to carry 3 tight ends, but I think they're going to ultimately start the season with 2. I think they're going to carry 8 offensive linemen, especially in light of the fact that Ben Brown is probably going to be out for a while. They also lost Marcus Bryant last week. Those are 2 swing guys, so you're not going to have either one of them. So you're probably going to have to carry that extra offensive lineman. They may even carry 9 just so that they can have enough depth. But I think at minimum, they carry 8. Now, running back, in my opinion, is the interesting position here, because what do you do with that third running back spot? We didn't see Jam Miller tonight. We saw Lan Larison. We saw JaMychal Hasty. Those guys are in the mix for it. I think Larison and Jam Miller are probably best positioned to be that third running back. I can also see a scenario where they cut Miller and then get him on the practice squad. That's going to be interesting, because you got Stevenson, you got Henderson, but who's the next guy? And I don't see them carrying 4. They could, but I'm not sure you want to do that, especially because you have Reggie Gilliam on the roster now, so he's going to be one of your backs. So if they carry 4, it'll be 3 Tails and Gilliam. Defensively, look, it's going to be interesting to see what they do at edge. It does not appear that Harold Landry is going to be ready to start the season. Our Kevin Stone talked about that the other day when he tweeted out that he's working to get to that point. But judging from what we've heard from folks, and what we've seen, he still has some work to do. Inside, you're probably going to carry 4 defensive tackles. You're going to carry Williams, Barmore, Durden, and then Farmer, I would think, would be the next guy. Maybe you carry a 5th guy that can maybe play across the line of scrimmage and give you some alignment versatility. Linebacker, you're going to carry 4. And then the secondary is interesting, right? Because you have your top 3, but you still got to carry 2 other corners. Who is that? I mean, is it Karan Prunty? Is it Marcellus Dial? Is it Charles Woods? Safety, you mentioned Jalen Reed. They traded for him. You got Woodson. You got Byard. You got Reed. You got Del Pettis. You got John Saunders, who's had a strong camp. So they have some questions that they need answered. There's going to be a lot of deliberation here over the next couple of days to see what this roster looks like.
So first on offense, when I look at the offensive line, obviously the 5 guys you have starting now are ready to go into the season healthy. So that's a good sign. You want to, again, develop that quality depth behind them. Tight end, they're going to run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, would you think, especially
I don't think 13. They don't have
13?
That third guy.
Okay.
They don't have the third guy, and with Gilliam on the roster, I think running 13 personnel would be a waste of time for them.
So more 12
13 personnel. You watch the Rams, they run it the best. You need to have, when you run 13 personnel, and I think one of the biggest misnomers is that you're running 13 personnel for blocking purposes and getting 3 big bodies on the field. You can, okay? But in the NFL, if you're going to go 13 personnel, you want to be able to move guys around, and you want to be able to create matchups, especially in the red zone. And so they don't have that third tight end. I don't see them. I could see them running 12, obviously, but not 13.
As far as the offensive line, Caleb Lomu. So at times we've seen him as the 6th offensive lineman. He might be involved in some of those packages. And I know you mentioned a few weeks ago that in practice we've seen him maybe go out and catch passes. I mean, he's an athletic big. He's 6'7", 310 pounds. He's an athletic guy, young guy. Maybe he can factor in at some point. Again, these are all, I wouldn't call them gadget plays, but something different looks that we know Josh McDaniels is really good at cooking up. So you'll see that versatility, hopefully, that he can bring.
Well, right now he needs to learn the protections and the run blocking schemes before he can worry about doing his best impression of his head coach.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to be seeing him doing anything remotely like that anytime soon. I think at the end of the day, he had an up and down summer. They're going to be relying on him. I look, when you look at this rookie class, I don't think they're going to get much out of this group. And we've said that all spring. We said it after they drafted him. We've said it all summer. This group is really going to show you what they're going to be in 2027 and beyond. If Lomu has to play for you this year, it's because you had a rash of injuries or you once again decided to play in that Rhino package a lot and use the 6 offensive linemen. Outside of that, if you stay healthy and are consistent, he should never see the field. Okay. This should be a red shirt year for him. Akis is the guy we all universally agreed has to be a difference maker for him. He does. He's undisciplined as shit. He doesn't know where the hell he's going half the time. But you see the upside there. You saw it tonight. They ran inside zone. Gabriel Pullett ran around him because he came down inside too far. Gabe Akis is going to have to play for you. He's going to have to play a lot of snaps. But Vrabel, Zach Erb, Mike Smith, his position coach, they're going to have to pop their tums because he is going to give them stomach aches. Okay? He's going to do a lot of dumb shit. But you're going to have to weather the storm with the growing pains in him because you need him. So for me, anything you get out of this class will be a bonus. But quite frankly, you shouldn't really, outside of Akis, you shouldn't be expecting anything from any of these guys. If they have to play for you, you might be in trouble.
You see a lot of similarities at times to how their organization is run to the way the Green Bay Packers are run, and it would make sense. Elliott Wolf earned his keep with the Green Bay Packers. We know what his dad did with the Green Bay Packers, and they are drafting not just for this year, but for future years. The Packers would always do that. They'd draft a lineman, an offensive lineman, and say, why would they do that? They're pretty solid there. But they knew they were going to lose someone in free agency, so they had someone to step
Belichick's done that for years.
Same thing. But it's kind of that Ron Wolf mentality. And look, I'm sure there's more than just 2 teams in the league doing that.
Everybody's doing it now because you do have to draft ahead.
You do, because of dollars and cents. So, but I think at times when you want to continue to build that consistent winner, that's what you do. You make sure that going into next year, your offensive line is going to be younger and better and more experienced at that point with, those guys going into their second and third year. So that's part of what I think they're looking at. And I think you make a great point that maybe you don't get much out of the rookie class this year. And we know they had some poor drafts over the last 4 or 5 years. That's come back to bite them a little bit. You nailed it with Drake May and Christian Gonzalez and a few other players. I thought last year's draft was good, but now, you have to continue to stack those together so that you're filling out your roster without having to go too far into free agency. But I mean, overall, I think this is still a good football team, but there are question marks going into the season that I didn't think were going to be there.
And obviously, Adam Schefter reported today that the Patriots and Christian Gonzalez doesn't appear that they're that close to striking a deal here. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised it came from Schefter, who was on McAfee, and Schefter's close with Kraft. So I don't know if Kraft's putting this out there for a reason, because Kraft, before training camp started, said, we're going to make him the highest paid corner in the league. Well, Devin Weatherspoon right now is the highest paid corner in the league at $33 million per year. It's time to give Christian Gonzalez 34, 35 million. And Schefter made it sound like they weren't in that neighborhood. Now, they might have been in the low 30s instead of 34, 35. I don't know how this lingers on into the season. How does that affect him? You want to get these things buttoned up before opening kickoff.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, he's a foundational piece. You want to see him here. You want to see it ironed out, and you want to see him get the new contract. But at the same time, if this goes into the regular season with no deal, this is going to go into next offseason. And I really believe that if this goes into next offseason, he's gone. They're going to trade him. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if this goes into next offseason, I would trade him too. I'd trade him. Now, here's the thing. It's important to point out, you're not going to, everybody keeps talking about Sauce Gardner. You're not getting the 2 1s if he's not under a new contract. The reason why the Jets got the 2 1s is because they had signed Gardner, extended him, and he was already locked up. So Indianapolis was willing to give them the second first. You're not getting 2 1s for Christian Gonzalez if he's not locked up long term. So you're going to get less. You're probably going to get 1-1 and then a couple mid-round picks. But if you can't get this guy under contract before free agency next spring, I would seriously consider trading him, because at that point, you may never get it done. And again, remember, the report a couple of weeks ago from Tommy Curran about the fact that his camp not only wants to set the market, but they want to ensure that a year from now, he's either still the highest paid corner in the league or one of the 2 or 3 highest paid corners in the league. So forget about 34, 35 million. My guess is this dude's asking for somewhere between 36 and 38 million a year.
Right, because who's the next man up? I know Joey Porter is in a contract squabble with Pittsburgh. He's not at the same level as Christian Gonzalez or Patrick Surtain or Derek Stingley Jr.
But all those guys have gotten paid, so
they have.
That's the other problem. You don't really have a barometer
right.
as to who the next guy is because the best guys are all under contract.
Well, this is why I always say pay them earlier. It saves you money if you pay them
I hate paying earlier, but
I know. But in the long run, I think you save money. I used Jamar
and
Chase
in the NFL,
example.
It's bad business, in my opinion, to pay them earlier. It's bad enough you got to make that commitment to them to your quarterback, which is a whole conversation in itself. But you just can't get into that habit of paying guys early, even if they're elite level guys. I think it's bad business. I really do. I think you're jumping the gun on a guy, and he's been good. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to get paid, but it's something. I think it's something that's reserved for select players. That's all.
Now, one other question is, how much does Vrabel value? And of course, he values cornerbacks. I mean, they're a big part of any team. How much does he value them, or does he value the big guys more, the interior linemen?
No, he
he
values the big guys more.
Yeah,
he does.
Exactly.
He values the big guys more.
Like
Belichick, he wants to build this team from the inside out.
Right.
So that's why I'm telling you right now, if they don't re-sign him now in the next few days, if this goes into next offseason, I'm convinced that if the right deal came along, they would move him. Especially if he's not signed to an extension at some point by April, let's say before the draft. If he's not extended before the draft next year, I could see a scenario where they either move him right before the draft weekend, or right after. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to get done. But if it doesn't, and it goes into next offseason, he can get moved.
Yeah, and the price will only go up. And then you go from there.
Right, but they're not. But John, we can sit here and say the price is going to go up all we want. At the end of the day, if they haven't paid him yet, they clearly have a number in their head that they think is max value for him. If that's the case, they're not going beyond that number. Even if in their own calculus, they've decided, okay, here's our number, here's how much further above that number we want to go. Even if they're willing to go to that second number, he's probably going to want more than that. So if that's the case, the Patriots are caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Because what's their reputation? They don't pay people. So they're trying to save face here, but the reality is internally they're also going, I don't want to pay this dude 36, 37 million a year. He's good, but he's not 36 million a year good.
And if I'm the player, I take what I can get right now, to be honest with you, because again, we know this is the one sport that injuries occur, and all of a sudden you're a franchise cornerback, and then something happens, and you're no longer a franchise cornerback, and you're not making anywhere near that money. I mean, at one point, Jair Alexander was a franchise cornerback till a couple injuries caught up to him, and now he's out of the league. And he's not that old. He's about 30 years old, which is old for a corner. I get it. But he was one of the top 5 corners in the league, and he didn't get his payday really because he kept looking for more and more money. I think if Christian Gonzalez is offered 4 years, 140 million with whatever 100 million guaranteed, sign it. That's money in the bank. You're going to get that. Maybe you could have got more if you stayed another year and negotiated for another year. But also with the injury concerns in this sport, you could have something happen and all of a sudden you're not that valuable anymore.
Yeah, contracts aren't guaranteed like they are in the NBA or Major League Baseball. So,
or maybe with the LA Dodgers either. I don't know if those contracts are guaranteed the way their owner is playing around with money, but we'll see with that.
Yeah. It'll be fascinating. I mean, I still think that they could get it done here in the coming days. But again, if you read between the lines, and it's not even the Schefter report today, even when Elliot Wolf met with the media the other day, there was a sense of trepidation there. He got asked about it. There were 2 or 3 questions regarding Gonzalez, and you can tell by his expression that he's staving the media off. He's trying not to talk about it because for all we know, Schefter could be right. Maybe they're not that far along in this process.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then I think we have to prepare for the fact that he's going to play through this season and then it could go in one of many directions next spring. So to be determined. Final thoughts here before we wrap this up.
Well, it's less than 2 weeks till the start of the season. Patriots at this point look like they're not as deep as we would like them to be. They don't look as ready as we'd like them to be. But we see this with a lot of teams in the NFL. The Rams have done this for 10 years under Sean McVay, where they don't play their starters, look just okay in the exhibition season, and then they go on and play in the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. Every coach has their own way of doing this. I think you're more of the old school coach who wants to see the players play in the exhibition schedule, especially
I don't want to
the
see
offense.
them play. I'd like to see them play a half just so that they can knock some of the rust off in game.
Right. And that's all we ask for because, again, the first snap of the season in Seattle is going to be the first snap of the season. They have nothing to fall back on in the exhibition season. So look, football is choreographed. It literally is choreographed. You guys are like great film directors or great stage directors. Like you do a lot of practice to make that play or that movie perfect. And if you're not doing it authentically and at the same type of speed and passion and intensity as you do in practice, then you're not really ready to be ready for the start of the season. Now, I just gave an answer that Stephen A. Smith would have been very proud of because I said a lot of things there.
Yeah.
But, you get my point. It's getting late.
There was definitely some bullshit sprinkled in there for sure.
Oh, it's egregious. It's downright terrible.
Yeah. Just like that Stephen A. Smith impression is.
I got to work on that one.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, they open 13 days from tonight in Seattle. Of course, Sunday's a big day, cut down day. So we're gonna get some questions. We're gonna get some questions answered. I don't know if we're gonna get the big one answered, the Gonzalez contract, but we'll know a lot more about this football team in a couple of weeks and what direction they can go. And I think we've all universally said the same thing, that this is a 9 to 11 win team. The schedule's tougher. They won't be as good record-wise as they were last year. They might be a better team. That'll be put to the test right out of the gate. Really, the first month of the season, they have a tough schedule. So lots to unpack here in the coming days before they head out west to take on the Seattle Seahawks on Wednesday, September 9th. That'll do it for this episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. Again, Patriots wrap up the preseason with a 37-13 loss to the Cleveland Browns. For John Sapochetti, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next time. Until then, peace.